I'm Anastasia Chatzka. I'm a fashion designer, pattern maker, and sewing educator, and I'm so happy you're here sewing along with me today. Welcome to Sew Anastasia, and today we are going to sew a shift dress with pockets. Who doesn't love a dress with pockets? And these pockets are going to be invisible. They're going to be in the side seams of the shift dress. And this pattern is so easy to sew. It literally has 2 shoulder seams, 2 side seams, and then some pockets in it. So this is a great simple dress to sew and go have a good time. So follow along and I'm going to show you exactly how to make this dress. And the best part, I have this pattern on my website so you can just download it at home, print it out, tape it together, and sew along with me. If you're not already a subscriber to Sew Anastasia, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell up in the corner because I put out sewing content all week long. Twice a week we put out videos on YouTube. So much fun sewing content just for you. And if you're already a subscriber, thank you so much for following along. Supplies for this project are super simple. You're going to need your paper scissors. You're going to need your rotary cutter and mat. You're also going to need a pencil. You're going to need your tape measure. You're going to need a ruler, doesn't matter what kind of ruler, just a ruler. You're going to need some matching thread. You're also going to need some bias tape. We're going to be creating a bias facing for the neck and the armholes. And you don't have to use bias tape. You could totally just finish your edges and flip it up once, creating a single folded hem. But I'm going to be using this bias tape to create a bias facing for the neck and the armhole, but you don't have to use it. And you're gonna need about yard and a half of fabric. Really depends on how wide your fabric is. So make sure you measure the pattern and measure your fabric first. And then you're also gonna need a pattern. So I designed the really simple shift dress pattern for you guys. Has a pocket pattern on it, and it is extra small through extra large. And it's super easy to tape together. It's got all the cut lines on it. It's got the alignment points on it. It's got grain lines on it. It's got sizes on it. It is in color, so you can print it in color or black and white. And all the lines are different variations for all the different sizes if you print it in black and white. So this pattern, super easy to print out and tape together. The first thing you need to do is print out your pattern and tape it together. So I've already done that, so let's take a look at it. I have a real nice simple page layout here so you know exactly how to lay it out and tape it together, and all the pages are numbered as well. So after you have this all taped together, you need to figure out what size you are. Next, we're gonna cut out the paper pattern. And to make sure you're cutting out the right size, it never hurts to measure yourself and measure the pattern just to make sure you're cutting out the right size and you have enough ease in your pattern. There are 1/2-inch seams on this pattern, so after you measure the pattern from end to end for the size that you think you are, make sure you take off 2 inches because we have 1/2-inch side seams. So I've measured myself and I'm gonna be cutting out a size small. Also, you can change the length of the pattern. So I always like to make my things a little shorter. So for this design, you're gonna measure from your shoulder all the way down for however long you want it. And then you can either make it shorter or you can tape on some paper and make it longer. I'm going to be measuring down 31 inches from my shoulder to the hem for my dress. Now that you have your paper pattern cut out, it should look something like this. We have the front cut on fold 1. We have our pocket, which is cut 4. And we have our back pattern piece, which is cut 1 on fold as well. Now it's time to lay out our fabric and cut our dress out of fabric. So let's do it. Don't forget, center front and center back are on fold, so that way you don't have a seam at center front or center back, and your pocket is cut 4. Now that we have everything cut out, it should look something like this. We have the front of our dress, we have our 4 pocket pieces, and the back of our dress here. Next, we need to finish our edges. I'm going to be serging, but if you don't have a serger, you can use your zigzag stitch or you could use your overcast stitch. Now, since I'm going to be doing a bias facing for my neck and my armholes, I'm not going to serge my neck or my armholes, but if you're going to do a single folded hem for those, you can go ahead and finish the edges of everything. So front dress, back dress, and the 4 pocket pieces. Now that we've everything serged, it's time to place our pockets. I want you to measure down from your underarm seam 11 inches and put a pin, and that's going to be where the top of our pocket starts. So I've measured 11 inches down from the underarm seam and I've put a pin, and now I've placed my pocket right sides together here. The straight edge is on the straight edge of the dress and the teardrop shape goes down. And now what we want to do is pin our side seam here together. So our first stitch is going to be sewing down the straight side of the pocket at 1/2 inch. You're going to pin all 4 pocket pieces to all 4 side seams. Now that all 4 pocket pieces are pinned, it should look something like this. Now we're going to sew that straight side down at 1/2 inch, and make sure you're just sewing the straight side. Don't try sewing all the way around that curve, otherwise we're not going to be able to flip our pocket out. Don't forget to back stitch at the beginning and the end. Back stitch and cut. We are done with all 4 pockets. Now that you have it sewn on, it should look something like that. And then what you want to do is open it up and iron it nice and flat. Next, we're going to give an edge stitch on top of the pocket bag. And we're going to do this to all 4 pocket bags. So that means I'm going to stitch 1/8 of an inch away from the seam onto the pocket bag. So it's a real little stitch right next to that edge. So make sure it's not real far away in the pocket bag and make sure you're not actually stitching on the dress fabric. So let's do that on all 4 pockets. Don't forget the back stitch at the beginning and just work your way all the way down the pocket. Back stitch at the bottom and cut. And we're done with all 4 pockets now. So check it out, we have the edge stitch done on all of our pockets. And by putting this edge stitch here, it helps keep the pocket on the inside of the dress so it doesn't fall out to the outside of the dress. Next, we're going to put the side seams of the dress together and sew up the pocket bag. So we're going to be placing our right sides together of the dress so you can see where our pocket bags are here. And now what we're going to do is pin down the side seams of the dress. We're going to pin around the pocket and then down the side seams of the dress at the bottom. And then we're going to do a 1/2 inch seam and just follow that. We're going to go down, around the pocket, and back down. So I'm just going to pin all the side seams in the pockets together. And while we're at it, I'm going to pin the shoulders together as well. Now that we're all pinned up, it's time to sew it all together. And by that, I mean we're going to sew together the shoulders, we're going to sew together the side seam around the pocket, and then the bottom of the side seam. Make sure you don't sew your armholes together, don't sew the bottom of your hem together, or try to sew the neckline together. And remember, we're going around the pocket, not just sewing straight down. Because if we sewed straight down, we'd close off our pocket. So when we get to this point, we're gonna have to pivot and we're gonna turn all the way around the curve of the pocket and then back down. I'm gonna sew the shoulders together first, and the seam allowance is a 1/2 inch. Now that we have the shoulders finished, we're going to sew up the side seams. Seam allowance is also a 1/2 inch. Now when you get to where the pocket is, you wanna make sure that you're 1 stitch outside of that first stitch that's here, because if not, you're going to see all the little raw bits of your pocket. So we make sure we're 1 stitch outside of it, come down a 1/2 inch into the pocket, make sure your needle's in the fabric, lift up your foot and turn. Now we're gonna sew around the curve of the pocket. Now that we're coming back up to the side seam, you wanna make sure that you're 1 stitch outside of that stitch that's there, that was sewing the pocket together. Lift up your foot and turn. Back stitch at the end and cut. And now you're gonna do the same thing to the other side seam. Now that we have the side sewn up, let's take a look at it and check out our pocket because it's finished. So we have our nice pressed side seam here, and what's that? That's our invisible side seam pocket. So if you've done the pocket properly, it just invisibly insets into the side seam here. So you'll notice we have that little edge stitch on the inside, and we can put our hand in the pocket. So you can see our shift dress is really coming together and it's looking so cute. I know I'm ready for a day on the beach anytime soon. Now we need to put our bias facing around the neck and the armholes and hem the bottom. Next, we're gonna attach the bias facing to the armholes and the neck. I'm gonna be demoing how to attach this bias facing to the armhole, and then you can go ahead and do it to the neck and the other armhole. This technique is so easy and it's such a beautiful finish. You are going to love it. I'm going to be starting at the underarm seam, and I'm going to be using single fold bias tape. So I'm going to unfold one of the folds, and now I'm going to line up that raw edge of the bias tape with the raw edge of my armhole, and I'm going to sew all the way around the armhole in that crease of the bias tape. And after we do that, we are going to flip it all to the inside, flip the entire piece of bias tape to the inside of the garment, and then we're going to stitch on the edge of the bias tape. Then we will have a beautiful completed armhole. If you'd like an in-depth video on how to sew bias facing, make sure you check out my video on that. Link will be down below and probably up here somewhere. And I also have a video on how to finish the armholes and neckline of the shift dress with just a single folded hem. So make sure you check out my other shift dress video for all those instructions. Also, I'm using a really fun contrasting green bias tape, so that way it's a little extra fun if you see into the armhole or the neckline of the dress. So let's go finish all of our seams. So now we're gonna sew in the fold of the bias tape. I'm just gonna keep lining up the edge of my bias tape with my armhole and working my way all the way around the armhole. When you get back to where you started, you want to overlap about 1/2 inch. Also, when I started, I folded that first piece of bias tape, so that way it's going to be a nice clean edge when we fold it over. Back stitch and cut. Now we're gonna flip it so that way we can fold the bias tape to the inside of the garment. So what I mean by that is we're gonna take the bias tape and we're gonna flip it to the inside of the garment, so the wrong side of the fabric, and then we're gonna stitch it down right at the edge. So I'm gonna be sewing right on the edge of that bias tape. I'm gonna work my way all the way around the armhole, making sure that everything's nice and flat. Once you get back to where you started, overlap a couple of your stitches and then backstitch and cut. Now that we've finished the bias facing, let's check it out. So you can see how beautiful the neck looks from the outside with the bias facing, and then how nice it looks on the inside. I just love that it's a little accent of colors, so that way it pops when you see the inside. Look at how nice our armholes look inside and out. All that's left is our hem. So I'm going to roll hem it 1/4 and 1/4 of an inch, and then we get to try it on and check it out. So I'm going to roll hem my hem 1/4 inch. So just make sure you're stitching on the very edge of your roll hem and work your way all the way around. Once you get back to where you started, overlap and cut. Now that our rolled hem is finished, it looks beautiful. Let's try it on. Here's our shift dress. I just love the way the shift dress drapes. It's such an easy dress to wear on those hot summer days, or when you just really kind of feel like wearing nothing, but you're not gonna go outside in your pajamas, so a shift dress is a great option. And hello, the pockets. The pockets are everything for this dress, and you can always just belt it and give yourself a new look as well. So the shift dress is such a versatile dress. It's one of the reasons I absolutely love it, and another reason it's always been one of my big sellers, because it's such a great versatile dress. So many ways to wear it. You can make it out of a fancy fabric, wear it out to a fancy cocktail event, make it in a denim, make it super casual. You have so many options for this. And I chose lobster, so I'll be wearing it to the beach. So here's the dress on me. I just love the fit of it, love this flowy fabric. I love the neckline and the finished armholes, and hello, the pockets. Just love pockets in dresses, and I know you probably do too. Again, this dress was so easy to make. You can make it in so many different fabrics and really put your own style and twist on it. You could even add sleeves, add a ruffle, add some patch pockets. The options are endless for your creativity with a shift dress. I would love to see your shift dresses after you make them, so make sure you tag me in the photos. And if you have any questions about making this shift dress, make sure you leave it down below in the comments, and I will get back with you as soon as possible. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up, give it some applause, and leave those comments down below. All the love and support is very appreciated. If you're not already a subscriber to Sewing Anastasia, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell, because you want to know when I put out new videos every single week. And I would love your suggestions for videos. So if you have any ideas for those, leave those down below too. And make sure you check me out on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and all those other social media websites, so that way we can stay connected and creative together. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.